even if you were scared, even though you were a person who couldn't do this race months ago, you went out and did that. You did that thing. And that is the coolest thing at the end of the day, because at that point, if you want to get mentally tougher, that allows you to do that, because even if something scares you, even if something is a big challenge, you're going to flex that muscle to bet on yourself a lot more, because you're like, yeah, this thing scares the crap out of me, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyways. And that is the coolest thing that I always see with athletes. And that's the thing that makes you not only a better runner, but a better person. And that is the plan right there.
And welcome back. We have Joe Corcione joining for the long run today for round 2. Joe and I spoke 2 years ago, which is crazy because time flies. That was in Lake Tahoe. Today you are in Arizona. I'm in Colorado. And welcome back, Joe.
Well, thanks for having me, John. I appreciate it, man. Dude, our first conversation was so great. And like I said on the first show, and I'll say it again here, man, what you're doing for the running community, sharing the why behind what we do in this crazy sport of running is truly beautiful and amazing. And I got so many great feedback from the first episode, not on me, but how you were able to bring out the best in me. And I see that how you bring the best in your guests. And so it's an honor to be here. Thank you for everything you do, man. And what you're doing is incredible. So it's awesome to be a part of it for round 2.
Appreciate it. As you've heard, we ask a really challenging question to kick things off. And that question is, who is Joe?
Yes. And, it's so interesting you say this, because I think that, the answer that I gave 2 years ago might even be different now. And I think that's super cool, because in life, we always evolve who we are. And I think that's the beautiful thing about life, is that we are not static as a person. And that is something that we like to teach at Everyday Ultra. That's something that has really helped me, is that, you can become anyone you want to become as long as you're willing to learn and put in the work. Because when I first started just life in general, I thought that traits were fixed. It was either you're athletic or you're not. It's either you are someone who is driven or someone who is lazy. And you're born that way, and that's how you're going to be for the rest of your life. And school doesn't perpetuate that opposite mentality when you're growing up, because it's like, oh, like you're not good at math, so you shouldn't major in engineering or anything as such too. But that really led me to make some bad decisions. Like, I was addicted with ADHD, or addicted to Adderall because I was diagnosed with ADHD. I guess also addicted to it as well too, as you can say, but addicted to Adderall from that. And I thought that because I had ADHD, I had to take Adderall my entire life. Because I was someone who wasn't confident naturally, I had to take alcohol to be able to talk to other people. And I thought that I had to make all these bad decisions because that's who I was. But once I turned things around and realized that the human element is to adapt, and we can learn these skills. We can learn to be confident. If you have ADHD, you can learn to be focused. If you aren't a runner, you can learn to be a runner, as long as you're willing to learn and put in the work. And it's hard and it's tough and takes a lot of challenges, and you will fail and fall on your face. But as long as you keep going, you won't lose, and you'll become that person. And so the reason why I start on all this stuff is because at the time when we first chatted, I wasn't an ultramarathon coach. I wasn't someone who started up like the Everyday Ultra coaching business. We had the podcast at the time, but that was someone I became in this 2-year process. And I remember when I first started out with the podcast, people would ask me to coach all the time. And I was like, I'm not a coach. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not a coach. I don't see myself that way. And through the process, again, of just learning and researching and understanding what it takes to be a great coach and putting myself through the trial, like becoming that person. And so the answer to your question is, oh, I'm not a coach. I'm not a podcaster. Like, that's not the answer. The answer is I'm human. And I want everybody here to like see that as empowering, because if you are human, you can become anyone you want to become. So no matter what skill you want to learn, no matter what race you want to run, no matter what challenge you want to do, it just takes a requirement of learning those skills, because the gap from where you are now to where you want to be is just skills. And when you learn those things and become those things, you are able to get there. And the thing that allows you to do that is being human. So to answer your question in a very long way, but succinctly right now, is I'm a human, and so is everyone listening. I think, unless this is being beamed out to extraterrestrial areas.
Hell yeah, brother. I love that answer. You are hearing why Joe's podcast is one of the top podcasts in trail. This energy makes me want to run through a wall. I listen to your podcast while I'm running. I texted you a few weeks ago as I was doing a couple hours in Cape Cod, and I was like, man, you are just so fucking good at talking and like getting people motivated and pulling good stuff out of other good humans. It was particularly that Chrissy May Heartcloud episode that was just exceptional. And yeah, I think the ability to like understand other people and like understand motivation and like how to find the best in other people, like you've done a fantastic job at that with your podcast, and now as a coach, and now even as a race director, coming up next April. It's just cool to see what you've been building in the last couple of years. And I want to, I guess, start there. Like, you bet on yourself, right? This is something that I did earlier this year, and it took me 2 years to take that leap, and a lot of conversations with friends behind the scenes, and perhaps a bunch of foreshadowing in like how I was having conversations on this podcast with experts in, mental health. And I was talking to business owners about, well, how did you break stasis? So for anyone who's like listening between the lines, you heard me asking other people, how do you do hard things? How do you take a bet on yourself? And all of that really helped me do it. And so I'm curious for you, like, how did you get to this place in 2025 where Joe is the host of Everyday Ultra, running coach, and race director, and just from the outside looks like you're living a pretty awesome, at least professional life, and doing something that fires you up every day. Obviously not without challenge, but doing things that set your soul on fire on a daily basis, which is like what we're all seeking, right?
Yeah, thank you for that, man. I appreciate all the kind words. And, I think about this a lot because things kind of started to really happen fast. But I think that, like, yes, there's like, some circumstances where it allowed me to go faster than others. But I think that there's two big things that people need to do in order to really, really get to where they want to be in life. And this is something that I hesitated on for years and years and years, man. Like, I had wanted to run ultra marathons. I had wanted to start a business. Like, I had wanted to do all those things. But first thing was that I had just this belief that, oh my gosh, it requires like so much of this, and I have to do all this research, and I have to do all this, this, and this, and this, and this. And it's so funny because a lot of the times when people ask me, like, how did you start the Everyday Ultra podcast? It was something that I wanted to start for a very, very long time. And I thought it was research and everything like that too. And someone just told me the one thing. They're like, dude, just buy a mic and just go hit record and just publish it. And like, that struck such a deep nerve with me at the time, because I was like, it really is that simple. So I literally like went to Fiverr. I had someone create like the thing, and like overnight, in terms of the podcast cover, like I figured out how to do the RSS feed and get everything on there. And then literally I had like one crappy Walmart mic. It was like $20 or whatever. And I just hit record and I just talked. And was the episode great? No, it was not. But I just published it and put it out. And then I realized that I was like, oh, okay, that was pretty easy. I'm just going to go ahead and do all these things. And as I was going along the way, I didn't have a plan. Like, when I started Everyday Ultra, a podcast, there was no plan to start coaching and race directing and everything as such too. All that stuff just kind of came out of nowhere. And so my big thing all the time is, the first thing that I say is the most important thing. It's not researching. It's not like putting together the plan. It's not doing this. It's literally just taking action. And listen, like, when people hear that, I don't mean just take reckless action and just go, but the reality is, it's so funny because when I was even like really like thinking about how to grow this coaching business, I was investing in like coaches and mentors, which I think are great and awesome to do from like a business perspective. But what I found was, a lot of the time was like, oh, I knew I needed to do this stuff, but I just needed to like take action on it. And so many times, like, yes, there's knowledge gaps. That's why we have coaches and things like that too. But a lot of us, we know what we need to do, and we're just not doing it. And the reason why maybe we're not doing it, and why I wasn't doing it when I first started up, is because I thought I needed to research. I thought I needed to do all these things, but I just realized that the best way to do it is to learn. And to learn is to do. And when you do those things, you learn along the way and you build the ship as it flies. So, I think for us, like, that has been the whole ethos of Everyday Ultra is, if we have an idea and we're excited and we're confident about it, let's just go and put it into action. Do we have the perfect plan? Yes, we got a loose plan, but guess what? We'll figure it out on the way and we'll kind of go. And it doesn't mean like we're being reckless. Of course, like, we want to adjust and pivot along the way, but I think indecision kills more dreams than lack of strength or lack of knowledge. And so if you have indecision, you're not going anywhere. And if you make a decision and it's the wrong move, then guess what? You're farther ahead because you learned that that decision was not the way to go. And so if you're afraid of making the wrong decision, don't be afraid of that. Be afraid of just standing still. And so once I started to do that podcast, I was like, I'm just going to just keep doing stuff. And I kept releasing episodes. Like, I would release multiple episodes a week, and I would just do all this stuff. And then when someone said, do you want to be a coach? At first I said, no, because I'm not a coach. And I kind of talked about that earlier. But then as I started to realize, I was like, okay, there's an opportunity here. What I did was I reached out to a few friends. I was like, hey, let me coach you for free. I just want to see if this works. If I'm good at it, I want to learn. And I had that happen too. And then lo and behold, like, launch a coaching business, and it starts growing and growing. And, since in the span of almost 2 years, it's pretty much 2 years to the date, we've gone from one coach to 10 coaches. We've gone from 0 athletes to over 200 athletes. We have a group coaching program option. Our podcast is one of the top podcasts. And I don't think we didn't have an elaborate plan to make this. It's just because we acted. So right now, anyone listening, if you have a dream, if you have a goal, and you have been like putting on your to-do list to do extensive research to get this thing done, just make one step closer to putting that dream into reality. I promise you, like that's the biggest thing that held me back for years. And once I just prioritize action over everything, that's where it went to. And again, listen, I'm not saying that it's going to happen. There's times I take action and I've fallen on my face. I've gotten slapped. I've gotten mud just like covered in the places. But I realized that, okay, don't do that again, because then you're going to go down that path. And that's actually better information because now I know what to need to do to be better, to get to where I need to be. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't actually take the action. And now I'm farther. A quote that's always stood with me that a mentor told me once is that it's better to run 1,000 miles in the wrong direction than to stand still. Because guess what? If you stand still, you don't know where to go. If you run 1,000 miles in the wrong direction, now you know one direction not to go. So you're closer than where you were before. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I will say all the time, and you said the term and I love it because it actually goes back to something that I always like to say, right? It's like betting on yourself. And that's scary. It's hard, right? Especially when I take big risks, whether it's like through money or time or resources or energy, right? It's hard to make that bet. But I always say too, you got to make the first big bet. And when I say the first big bet, that's like the one decision that you make in your life where you are really putting the chips in. You're pushing those chips to the table. And maybe you're unsure if it's going to go there. And maybe you're risking some stuff as well too. But you are betting on yourself. And here's the thing, right? That bet could pay off and it can just be amazing. And that bet can go totally the other way and you can lose it all. But it's not whether you win or lose. It's that you made the bet on yourself. And if you make the bet on yourself, the time you make the first bet, it becomes easier to bet on yourself. It becomes easier to bet on yourself because you're like, hey, at least I took the chance. Let me take the chance again. And if you believe in yourself that you can put in the work and learn and do those things, like you can get to where you need to be, but just take the first bet. Most people don't take the first bet. Most people wait for the opportunities to come to them. You got to push the chips in the middle of the table and make that first bet. And regardless of whether it pays off or not, you making the first bet is going to get you more comfortable to make more bets in the future. And here's the biggest mistake, right? People make the first bet, they get burned. Like, well, that's why I don't bet on myself. No, like you took the first bet. Be proud of that and you learn some information from there. So that bet didn't come with no payoff. Like I talked about this with Kodiak 100 Mile. I raced Kodiak 100 Miler. Didn't go the way that I wanted to for various different reasons. We can talk about that. We can not. But the point is this, is that I'm stoked about that race and I'm so happy. And here's why. It's because I got a great lesson that's going to help me race better in the future. So if you go into every bet that you make, knowing that you're either going to win through the goal that you're going to get through, or you're going to win through the knowledge that's going to help you to get to where you need to be, you will never lose. You will never lose. And if you have that mindset, you will make bets on yourself all the time. And even if 5-6 times in a row it doesn't pay off, eventually it will pay off if you keep betting, you keep working, keep believing. And that is the biggest thing I always tell people all the time is, just keep betting on yourself. And if you don't stop, you will not lose. That is a guaranteed fact in life. And that is something that I try to preach to all my athletes, anyone who asks me questions about like what to do to get to their big dreams. And that's something I think that's led to all of our success here at Everyday Ultra.
You're like a dream guest. I have to like prompt you like with a couple of words and then you talk for 6 minutes. It's great.
I know. It's like a blessing and a curse, right? Because I'm just like, I can just keep going. It's crazy.
You do solo episodes, right?
So I do solo episodes and we've become, whether it's famous, notorious, whatever word you want to use, but this is really funny. So like 2 years ago, I raced Cocodona and I recapped that race. And as you can tell, and you listening, I love to talk. I just was like, I'm just going to record my experience. The episode ended up being 5.5 hours long of just me talking.
Well, it's a 200-mile race and that's the abridged version.
Right. It's the abridged version. So at first I'm nervous. I'm like, oh God, like are people going to listen to this? It's so long. Like I put it out. To this day, that is our most downloaded episode.
You talked for 5.5
hours. And then guess
straight?
What? When I did Arizona Monster, yeah. So that one was straight. And then Arizona Monster.
Wait. I did you fuel during?
Yeah, I did. Yes, I had an electrolyte drink and I would pause and I would take that. I'll have a snack. Yes. So it is the ultra running a podcast, I think. Now I will say the second time we did this was Arizona Monster 300. That podcast was 7.5 hours long of me talking solo. Now I did take a break for that one. That one I took a break. I had to. My bladder wouldn't let me not take a break. In my mind, I was like, I need to regroup. But it was so cool. Like I just put that out. And those are, we look at our top 5 downloaded episodes. It's those race recaps that are over 3 hours long, which is crazy.
Why do you think people are tuning in?
I think for various different reasons. I think because, and this was not, again, not an intentional thing. It was just like I just acted and thought it was a good thing. But I think just on reflection on a few different things and feedback that I've gotten, I think the first thing is that we appeal to ultra runners. And for a lot of times, like ultra runners are running out there for 3, 4, 5 hours. And so they can literally just listen to this whole story on one long run and they can just crush it in one day. And I think that's where a lot of people like listen to those long episodes. I think number two is that, and this is a really, really good thing for anyone who wants to create content, who wants to, start to have stuff in the place. People love storytelling. They love storytelling. And I love storytelling. Storytelling was a way for me that helped me to really just, connect with certain concepts, right? Even just through the age old things, right? Like we think about Greek mythology, we think about, allegories, we think about fables, right? These stories teach us lessons about the human elements. And I think when we can walk through a story in like really in-depth detail that we do, because through this, I really give in-depth detail throughout. I think people can connect with that because when they hear about, being at mile 190 and being at this low point and thinking about 60 miles to go, like people can relate to that, or they're like, oh, I'm going to face this. And what are the things that I need to do to be there? And then the third thing is that I don't just tell the story. As I give this stuff, I almost like add my commentary on like where there's a good training like lesson in this too. Because I think like there's two pieces of content. There's like informational and there's storytelling. And so we try to we want to tell a story, but we want to give you the information on there. And I think that's what makes those episodes so, popular to the people.
That's good stuff.
We can make this podcast 7 hours too, by the way, if you want to. No, I'm kidding, but
I'm going to have to fill up my water a couple more times and empty my bladder. But
I'm just kidding.
I love the just start feedback, right? So I had a bunch of conversations earlier this year with people, both on the podcast and behind closed doors, literally. One of them was with Ian, the CEO of Scratch. And so here's someone who was like forced to make a change in his career due to injury. He was a professional cyclist and he thought he was going down that path, and he got injured and he had to kind of figure out a pivot there. And so I saw him yesterday. I went to the Scratch Cafe. Anyone who's in Boulder, you should go to the Scratch Cafe and get that food because it's delicious. And he was like, hey man, like, how's it going? I hadn't seen him since I had taken this leap. And we had gone back and forth via email a bunch of times. And I told him, and he was like, wow, it sounds like things are going really well. And he's like, that's great. And even if things hadn't ramped like this, you'd still be winning because you took the leap and you would have learned something, or you would have adapted or been able to pivot or something. And like, basically good on you for making that bet, to your point. Like, so many people are stuck in this period of stasis, as I was for 2 years. Actually 3 years, something like that. If you go back and listen to, I did a podcast with my friend Tony DiPasquale, Tony with a Sony, for those who follow him. And we chatted in the summer of 2023 here in Boulder. It was right before I did a Breaking 5 attempt in the mile. And we did a podcast, and Tony talked about how he left a high paying software job to pursue photography and like bet on himself and create a life that really fired him up instead of, building code all day, which there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you like doing, but it wasn't lighting him up. And so he said something along the lines of like, eventually the cost of not making a decision will outweigh the cost of making the decision, and you'll get there. And he said this to me in July of 2023. And so eventually I got there. It took 2 years, but it's such an interesting reflection, or such an interesting statement to consider that, like, yes, it's easy not to make a change, but at some point it becomes harder to sustain not making that change, whether it's signing up for the longest race you've ever done, or saying something to your partner, or quitting your job, or asking for a raise, or like whatever the hard thing is. Eventually the cost of not doing it becomes higher than the risk of doing it.
Yeah, 100%. I love that because it does eat away at you, right? Like if you think about this thing and you're like, I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it. And maybe, you're in a job you don't like, or maybe like it's a certain lifestyle that, you're living that, if you sign up for that race, that's going to motivate you to get into a certain lifestyle. Or maybe it's just the race that people are signing up for that, you're like, I don't know if I have the time to train for this or whatever. And you're seeing people crush it. Like there is a weight to that, and you carry that over and over and over again. And like for me, I'll tell you this, like the biggest thing that weighed on me was when I really wanted to get sober. Like I really wanted to get sober, but I never took that leap because it was scary. It was hard. And I was afraid of the person I was going to be on the journey to sobriety, because in any journey of change, whether you're going from taking drugs to being sober, whether you're going from not an entrepreneur to being an entrepreneur, whether you're going from not an ultra runner to being an ultra runner, that journey is hard. And because in that moment, like you're not going to be good at it. You are going to fail. You are going to like not know the knowledge that you need to know. And that is uncomfortable and it's hard and difficult. And that's why people don't make the change. But like, here's the thing, like the flip side is that for years and years and years, when I was wanting to get sober but not taking the action, it ate away from me. It ate away from me slowly and slowly and slowly. I was becoming way short with the people that I loved, because not because there was anything on them, but because like I just didn't like who I was. I was becoming resentful of all of like the things that was happening in my life, not because they were happening, but because they were being caused by me not taking the action to be sober. And it just led me to be this bitter and just resentful and not liking myself at the end of the day. That's the honest reality. And I wasn't liking myself because you are not betting on it. And I think that with that scenario, like it took me to really, honestly, I had to hit rock bottom. Like everything kind of crumbled for me to finally realize I was like, I need to make a change. But here's the reality. If you don't take the bet on yourself, and here's a really good thing. This is like a hard rule that I make with myself. If I have an idea in my head and it swirls around once, I'm like, okay, great. And it swirls around again. And if it keeps swirling around in my head and I'm not doing anything about it for a week, I got to do something about it. Like that's my hard rule all the time, because if it keeps swirling in your head, something great's going to come to that. I truly believe that. I know it's woo-woo. There's no really science behind that, but there's something about that that has been true. Like Everyday Ultra was an idea for me for 4 freaking months. And the only reason why I didn't do it is because I didn't have the time. And then when I got injured, I implemented it and it ended up leading to all this stuff. And I was like, what the hell? Like, why didn't I do this 4 months earlier? And so that being said, like, I think the biggest thing is if you don't make the decision to bet on yourself, you are going to eat yourself away. And I guarantee you, like, that is going to be a harder life than whatever trials and tribulations that you face along the way, because what you're doing to yourself is that's hard difficulty you're doing at the expense of where you want to be. But if you are going through the hard stuff, that is for the life you want to be. So literally you're facing pain at the expense of your life and your dream place of where you want to go. But if you're doing struggle to get there, you're doing that for that thing. So you're getting something in return, while as in the other way, you're just going down, 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 down. So like, yeah, I mean, I love that quote because it's like, yeah, it's hard. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you're like, yeah, you like have this professional life and it looks awesome, but man, it is hard. It is hard to run a business. It is hard to put on a race. It is hard to train for a race on top of that. I also want to be like the best husband I can be to my wife. We got a new dog. Like I want to take care of him. Like all that's really hard, but it's worth it. And I would rather have a life where I'm going through immense difficulty, but I feel this like amazing purpose, than to have a life of ease and comfort and pleasure, but to know that I'm doing way less than where I want to be in my life. And I think that is a trade-off anyone should make 10 times out of 10, because it's not about like, you shouldn't chase pleasure in life. You should chase fulfillment. And like the things that are going to get you fulfilled are the things that have meaning to you. And even if it's hard as hell, like if it has meaning to it, that's a life worth living.
I love it. Okay, so one of the ways that we can practice this is through running, right? So running is a sandbox where it's a lower stakes version of quitting your job or changing your life or getting sober or all these things where if you screw up, like you DNF. It's unlikely that like your life will change in a material way if something goes wrong at a race, unless like you fall off a cliff or whatever. So this episode will come out in late fall of this year. As people are listening, they're probably also thinking about their schedule for 2026. So in the facilitation of empowerment and being better and being able to bet on ourselves and be more confident in our ability to take risks, like how are you advising your athletes to think about picking a race if they're looking to use running as a way to get stronger mentally?
Yeah, this is a great question, because I think it all comes down to intent, which is the first thing, right? So you said for this specific case, it's all about like if an athlete comes to me and they're like, I want to set a race schedule or do something next year that is really going to help to build that mental muscle. And it doesn't have to be that, right? Like, you know, some people, if it's like, hey, I just want to have a fun race year, I want to run the longest, whatever it is, pick your race schedule with intention, have the goal to set in there. Don't just sign up for every race. Like even if it's my race, I'm telling you that right now. Like even if you see this and you're like, oh, it's amazing, but like make sure that you have the intention for your race schedule. Because if you just throw darts at random on ultra sign up, like you might just have the race. You're like, I don't know if I actually wanted to do this. I just got hyped on it. It's like, no, like it has to be connected with a goal. So in this specific scenario, if the goal is to get tougher mentally, the biggest thing I ask is two different things. I ask two different things to my athletes. The first thing I say, hey, what kind of races, what kind of challenges excite you? Like pure excitement. Like you look at it and you're like excited. You're like, oh, like I think Cocodona is exciting. I think running in Arizona is exciting. I think like doing this, and this is exciting. I'm like, great, that's awesome. Cool. Write all those things down. And you listening right now, if you're going through your schedule, write them down right now. If you're driving, please don't. Please, God, don't. But like if you are like have a pen and paper or phones app, do it right now. Write all the things that excite you. Okay. Now the next thing I ask, okay, Now, what are the things that scare the crap out of you in ultra running? Like, if I tell you what scares you in ultra running, write down the first things that come to your mind. Don't think about it. Don't justify it. Like, don't try to be like, well, maybe I can get through it. It's like, no, those initial thoughts, write it down. Like, okay, well, running a 200-mile race, running a race in the San Juan Mountains, like writing all that stuff down. Like, great. It's awesome, right? You have those 2 lists. And I say, okay, let's take a look at these 2 lists. And I always take a look at the 2 lists and I say, okay, which of these are the ones that are going to intertwine in each other? Because here's the thing, right? Like, if you pick a race that just excites you, if it's the goal to mentally push yourself, you're actually not going to mentally push yourself as much. What's really, really interesting is, there's a part of the brain, I think it's the precingular anterior cortex. And basically this part of your brain grows bigger if you do things that you don't want to do, and it grows smaller when you do things that you do want to do. And what they found that over time, that people who live happier and longer lives have a bigger part of this brain than others. It's actually really interesting too, that they've actually seen that people who are depressed, obese, have like lower, like just social status, things like that too. They actually have a smaller part of this brain too. So it's really, really interesting. Like, this is like neuroscience as well too. So the point is this too, because even if you do something that's hard, but you like it, that part's not going to grow. So like, if you really love like push-ups, like, and you're doing push-ups, yes, it's hard physically, but if you enjoy it, that thing's not going to grow. So that's why you need to add the second element of doing the thing that scares you. Because if you just do something that's exciting, like, it's going to be fun and awesome, but it might not push you mentally, but you got to do the thing that's scary. Now, you don't want to do something that's only scary, because I truly believe that you have to have it exciting, because if there's that element of excitement, you're going to be more likely to train for it. You're going to be more likely to be in the pursuit of it, and you're going to enjoy the training process. So I say, if you want to find yourself mentally, find something that excites the hell out of you, but scares the ever living crap out of you. And once you find that goal, it's there. So like, if we look on that list that I made the example for, the person said, oh, Cocodona excites me, and running a 200-mile race really scares the crap out of me. I'm like, hey, maybe we do Cocodona next year. Maybe we do this, right? And they're like, oh, like, sick. And I see their eyes get all lit up, and then they're like, oh, like, I don't know. And I'm like, that's it right there. Like, you have the excitement and the fear. That's the journey that's there, because you're going to be excited to train. But here's the thing. If you do the thing that scares you, right? The thing scares you because there's an element of failure. There's an element of failure. There is the requirement to be someone who you're not right now. Like, the reason why things are scary is because there's a belief that it's like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And that might be true. You might be someone who signed up for a 200-mile race next year, and you might not be able to do 200-mile races right now. But like I said in the beginning of the podcast, who you are now versus that version who shows up at the starting line at Cocodona, all that requires is a set of skills. It requires you to train. It requires you to put in volume. It requires you to get dialed on logistics and knowledge and things like that too. And once you go through that process, I'm not saying that fear is going to go away, but you're going to get more confident. You're still going to be fearful. And then you toe the line at Black Canyon City for Cocodona. You're scared, but you're prepared and you're ready to go. And you go through that 250-mile epic journey. And at the finish line is not just a belt buckle, but what it is now you have shown yourself that even if you were scared, even though you were a person who couldn't do this race months ago, you went out and did that. You did that thing. And that is the coolest thing at the end of the day, because at that point, if you want to get mentally tougher, that allows you to do that, because even if something scares you, even if something is a big challenge, you're going to flex that muscle to bet on yourself a lot more, because you're like, yeah, this thing scares the crap out of me, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyways. And that is the coolest thing that I always see with athletes. And that's the thing that makes you not only a better runner, but a better person. And that is the plan right there to do it.
You describe my philosophy and process around training for the Grand Traverse 40 miler, which is the longest race I've run so far. When I signed up last December, I could not fathom running 40 miles through high alpine from Crested Butte to Aspen. But I was like, it's 8 miles longer than my longest race. That'll be 2 hours. And it was 3 hours longer. And in the process of training for that race, I did things that scared the fuck out of me. I was in Leadville and I rolled into the parking lot with Kevin Goldberg, who you know, and we ran into Rachel and Trenken and her partner, also Kevin. And I had been talking about doing Mount Massive for a couple of days to Kevin, and I wasn't able to do it 2 days prior because the air quality was like 130. And for those who don't know, Rachel and Trenken is like a multiple time 200-mile winner. She set the course record at High Lonesome this year, a few weeks before this, and just like a crazy awesome athlete, but just like a rad person too. And she was like, oh yeah, we're just like going up Mount Massive. And I was like, Kevin was like, oh, you should join. I was like, Kevin, I'm so fucking unprepared for this, like mentally and physically. Like, I had just dumped my raincoat. I had taken my filter out. Like, there were so many like logistical details. I took out a bunch of my fuel thinking I was going to run like 6 miles with Kevin and then go back to his house and pick up more stuff and go back out and do like 12 in the morning. And he was like, fuck it. Just like they have tons of fuel. And so I loaded up on these precision bars from the other Kevin. And Rachel was like, yeah, we're just going to cruise around and go up. And anyway, we start running up Mount Massive. And obviously you're starting at, well, not obviously, it starts at 10,000 feet and goes up from there to 14,400. And here I am like setting off on a 20-mile day with this stud athlete. And I'm like, we're running uphill for miles. And we're like an hour in, and I'm like, I'm in so far over my head. And I was like, I can't wait to see what I'm made of, but like, don't look like an idiot at the same time. And 6.5 hours later, we finished, and I was like, wow, that was a day. And it was the like probably fourth longest time on my feet ever in just like a random training day. And I said that to Rachel at the end. She was like, what? Really? Like, cool. Because she like, that's like an average run. But to your point, it was like, I began seeking out, and there was a ton of friction in like actually getting started. I said no to Kevin Goldberg like 5 times. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. This is a bad idea. This is how people get like medevaced off of these freaking mountains. But for some reason, I chose to do it. And I'm so glad I did, because the growth that occurs from stuff like that, when like I truly felt like way out of control at the beginning. And I was like, I truly don't think that I can finish this. And I don't know at what point I like bail. And we ended up like super off trail. We were climbing just up the belly of the mountain, and we had 2 miles with 1,000 feet of gain each. And it was like, you take one step, you take another step, and then you like set yourself, and you take one step backwards because you can't dig in. And we're at like 13,000 feet at this point. So you're both limited by like your ability to like get your foot into the ground, but also process oxygen at this high altitude. And it was just like it's a day that I'll definitely always remember because of how out of my element and how like out of control I felt in a good way. And like, just like a slightly more than a healthy amount of fear. And it made me better, right? It made me way more confident in running the race 2.5 weeks later. It made me way more confident in my physical ability, my mental ability. And I grew leaps and bounds that day from this like random occurrence that I definitely wasn't planning and probably wouldn't have agreed to ahead of time. And so to your point, it's like we have to put ourselves in these positions where we can grow in these arenas that, I mean, on something like that, there is a fair amount of risk of like people die on these mountains. So it wasn't without potential repercussion, but I don't know, I was like consoled by the fact that all these people were super athletes with tons of experience. But yeah, we got to put ourselves in these really challenging places sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. I love that story, right? Because it's awesome, because it's like, it seems like such a rad opportunity, but it's scary. And I love the words that you use. It's like more than a healthy amount of fear. Like, I think that is great. Like, don't do something that's like terrifying where you're going to be like throwing up and things like that too, but just like get a little bit out of your comfort zone. Like, I'm going to say a lot of bit out of your comfort zone, not something that's unreasonable, but that like element of fear is so huge, because you show that it's like, I was able to move forward even while feeling scared. And usually fear is a thing that holds people back. But now you're teaching yourself that I can move forward even with the fear. And like a quote that changed my life all the time is that, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward even though you feel scared. And I think that's like the coolest thing, because you're literally showing that in practice when you do that. You showed that in practice when you went up Mount Massive, right? You're like, I'm scared. Oh my gosh, like there's this, but you did it anyways. And that's the thing I think that is so, so huge, because like the more you do that, the more you're going to grow and everything that's such too. And, that's progress. Like I tell people all the time, like if you feel stuck in life, if you feel like you're in a rut, if you feel depressed, if you feel anxious, the thing that's going to be the antidote to all that is progress, right? It's always going to be progress. And, that's another great way to look at your race schedule. It's like, how can I make progress in the next year? Is it running, that 50K a little bit faster? Is it going for a PR at the 100-mile distance? Is it running the farthest you've ever gone? Is it doing a mountain race and you live in Florida and you really want to get out of the comfort zone? Like we had an athlete, she's so amazing. She's racing javelin this weekend, but she lived in the panhandle of Florida. There's no hills at all. And her first 50 miler ever, was Cruel Jewel 50. This race is insane. It is nuts. It is probably one of the toughest 50 milers in the US. And she got it done. And like, she was on the treadmill doing this thing. It's like, and like, that's a preconceived notion. They're like, I live in a flat area. Like, can I do this race? Like, I don't know, maybe, maybe not. But she was like, no, we're going to go ahead and do this. And she did it and she finished it. Afterwards, she was like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. That was the most mentally taxing thing I've ever done. She goes, but at the same time, that was the greatest thing I've ever done. There's just something about just feeling so triumphant when you're in the arena and you come out marred and, dust and sweat and blood, but like you're victorious. Yeah, I think just those are the wins that you just feel like you become unbreakable, right? Like, I think the tagline we've been really starting to really, really live by at Everyday Ultra is endure better. And I truly believe that if you can endure better in your goals and your ultra running training, like, you're going to have a better life. You're going to have better races. You're going to have better relationships because life is hard. Challenges are hard. Big goals are really, really hard. But the more you can learn to endure better, the better you're going to live. And I think that's like the coolest thing about life. And, it makes all of that struggle and difficulty so much more worth it because there's a greater reward at the other side.
Is that why you're starting a race? To put people through that?
Yeah. I mean, like, so with the race too, like, there's a few different things, but yeah, I think, as we thought about Everyday Ultra, right, we wanted to just be more than just coaching, right? We wanted to be versatile. And of course, like, what's one way we can teach people to endure better is to create a race, but not just any race, my friend. This race is tough. Like, we are putting on this tough race. And now granted, I'm not putting on this race like for tough for the sake of tough. It's not like we're going to like mess with the course markers and do all like that kind of stuff. Like, that's not the thing. But we made a really tough course. But the cool thing is we also made it very accessible for first timers doing the distance. So 50K and 100K, but in the 50K, there's about 8,000 to 9,000 feet of climbing. And then the 100K also has that same 8,000 to 9,000 50K, but then you got like a lot of running on the back end, which kind of presents its own challenge. And our whole goal here was like helping people to endure better and showing them that they can do those things. I think the other reason, the main reason why we wanted to do this, have the race, is because, we truly believe that one of the coolest things about running is community. And, with Everyday Ultra, like, we don't just want to be about the coaching. Like, we want to build community. We want to build those face-to-face connections and relationships because bar none, if you survey 100 ultra runners, I guarantee you at least 90%, if not 100% of them, if you put what they love about ultra running, community is going to be in there. And so like for us, like, I think that community allows people to be the best version of themselves and allows them to go for the bigger goals. I mean, I'm sure you've been in the situation. I've been in the situation where you're in a group of people and they're all like, yeah, like, I signed up for this, or like, I'm going for this next year. And like, in your head, you're like, hell, I want to do that. Like, I want to push myself. Like, you push yourself because you're associated with people who are also pushing yourself, right? It's the common cliche we hear. It's like, you are the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And so for us, it's like, how do we bring those people together, not just to show them what they can do on the course, but to be aligned with people who are just like them, trying to push themselves. Because there's been times where I've run in these races and I've met people and I learned their background and they're like, I've done this, this, and this, and this. And in my head, I'm like, whoa, like, that's so cool. Like, I would love to do that too. And like, or you talk to someone, you're like, I hadn't even thought about doing things like that. Like, when you meet people who are pushing themselves, you want to push yourself too. Not from a place of insecurity. That's a whole different kind of story, but from a place of like, you see other humans doing rad stuff, you want to do rad stuff too. Because I truly believe like, the biggest inspiration, like, if you want inspiration, find someone who's doing the thing you want to do, because that is proof that if one human's doing it, you can do it too. Now, of course, right, like, it might be harder for some people, right? Some people might be more genetically inclined. Some people might have, resources, but that doesn't matter. Like, what matters is they're doing that thing. They did a certain set of things to get to that thing, and you can do that thing too. Again, you might have to work harder. You might have to work longer, but it's possible.
Joe's working so hard. He's sweating here. He just had to clear his brow.
I'm sweating. It's like 90 degrees here in Phoenix. It's going to be a nice hot javelina. But all that being said, we wanted to bring people together in this place to not only have them endure better in the race, but to leave meeting people, having connections that are going to make them better too in the future. So for us, it's not just about the race. It's about the community. It's about impacting people, not just for 50K or 100K or some crazy people. They're doing both. Shout out Randy Zuckerberg. Amazing episode too. That was awesome. She shouted out the race, but she's doing the double. That's so freaking cool. But yeah, people are doing the double, but we don't want them to just leave with a belt buckle. We want them to leave with friends, community, and this whole group that is going to want to, really inspire them to endure better throughout their lives.
So how do you go about going from having an idea of putting a race like this together to actually executing it and creating a community around it, right? Everyone loves to use the word community as a buzzword. And yeah, we're at the New York City Marathon and we're creating community. Come to a community run. Like, what the hell does that mean as it relates to the Everyday Ultra ecosystem and your efforts around the race?
Yeah, I think community really comes down to one thing, because there's one story that is told to me all the time, that I tell it to all my coaches. I think about it all the time. And it kind of leads to community, kind of doesn't, but also at the same time kind of goes in the same kind of ethos of what the moral of the story is. So here's the story, right? So I had a friend, he really wanted to run a sub 14-hour 100-miler, which is very, very fast, very, very fast. And he tried for years and years and years and years.
For the marathoners listening who might not understand the context on sub 14, so like the winners of Western States are running 14,
Yeah.
16,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's quite fast.
Very
Unless
fast.
you're Zach Bitter.
Yeah, right, exactly. Zach, like, man, shout out to
Sub
Zach.
12.
Yeah, amazing. Like, once a world record holder for fastest 100-mile time. He's done sub 12 multiple times. Shout out Zach, amazing, great friend of mine. He was actually my first coach, so I learned a lot because of Zach. I owe a lot of the success to Everyday Ultra to Zach, so shout out to him. HPO podcast, great guy. Anyways, all that being said, my friend wanted to run a sub 13-hour 100-miler, and he hired 4 different coaches to help him get there, and none of those coaches can get him there.
He did all the training of the 4 coaches in the same week. That's why he overtrained.
Yeah, exactly. Right. He tried to listen to everybody, but he like tried this like for years and years and years with the coaches. And then all of a sudden he hires one more coach, and this coach, so he works with this coach and the training seems like it's working. He goes on race day to race this and he gets it. He runs like 13:50. He like gets it. And after the race, he ends up texting his coach and being like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, it's so good. Like, I can't believe I did it. Thank you for all this stuff." And the coach just texted back, "Great job." That was it. And then my friend dropped the coach the next day. And so the reason why I was like, what the heck? Like, this guy literally spent years trying to get this goal, and he got the goal and he dropped the coach. And I said, "Hey man, like, why did you drop your coach? Like, that's crazy." And he goes, "Because in that moment I didn't feel seen." And I was like, whoa. Like, that's so huge. And so the reason why I'm sharing this in the regards to community is because with community, it's all about being seen. It's all about being accepted. It's all about like feeling like that you are part of a group of people that knows you, whether they don't know you in depth, but you all know the same thing. That's why run clubs are so cool, because everybody, there's no one thing. We all love running. Right? When we're out there in these races, we all know one thing. We want to go out and get that belt buckle, right? We all know something. And so when we feel seen, like, those are the things that can really help. It doesn't matter like how good something is. It doesn't matter how good a race is. It doesn't matter how good a product is. It doesn't matter how good a service. It doesn't matter how good of a coach you are. If you are not making that person feel seen, then they're not going to want to still be in there, right? Now, some people, like, they're like, "I don't care about that," and they want it. But most people as humans, like, we want to be seen and we want to be heard and we want to be valued. And so for community, like, I think, yeah, it's a buzzword, and I think people throw it out. Like, they have all people together and like, yeah, we're all community. But the reality is yeah, you can like have that video and be like, we're all community, we're all together. But then like, you don't like include those people, or, you don't pay attention to certain people. Like, they're not going to want to come back. And that's not a community. That's just a PR stunt. And so I always say at the same time, like, every single person needs to be like seen and heard and everything. Like, that's why at Desert Peak, like, my plan, I'm going to watch every single finisher finish. Like, it's going to be tough. I'm probably going to stay up really long hours. I'm probably going to be like just all that stuff too. And thank God for Shelby Hines. She's, co-race directing this with me. She's going to be helping out with all the stuff. So we're going to make sure everything's there, but I want to make sure that everyone crossed that finish line and like they get a handshake from like the person who created the race, from a standpoint of being like, you did this, like, you accomplished this and you did that. And I think that's the coolest thing, is we want to make everyone feel seen and heard. And I think that's when it comes down to community, like, that's what it is, because, people want community because they don't want to feel like they're alone on this journey. And they don't want to feel like they're invalidated, because I bet a lot of runners can relate to this. I related to this when I first started ultraing. I had no friends at ultra run, right? You get the comments all the time. "I don't even drive that far. What, your knees hurt? Oh my God, you're running how far?"
I mean, 200 miles is really freaking far.
It is. It's really far. But like, we start to get
gas.
We start to feel like we're questioning ourselves. We're like, wait, why do I do this? Like, is it weird? Like, I don't know. And then once we find people who's like, "Hey, like, what do you do?" It's like, "I run like 100 miles. And they're like, "Oh, sick. Which one?" And then we're like, "Oh, awesome." Like, we get excited about that because now we feel like we are seen. And I think that's the coolest thing about community. So that was a long-winded answer to say, but like, that's the ethos of everything we do in Everyday Ultra. It's like, we want to make anyone in our community seen. We want to make them feel valued. We want to make them feel heard. Of course, we want to give them great coaching and great value and great advice. But like, we want everybody to not be a number. We want everyone to be someone who's a valued member of the team. That's, I think, the ethos of, anything in life.
It's a really cool way also to bring a lot of people together who are connected digitally and connect them in person, right? You have 200 athletes. I assume a bunch of them are going to run the race. I had this experience with Boulderthon this past fall where there were like 125 people that listened to the podcast and used the code and flew to Boulder to hang out. and run a race. And I met a lot of them. They showed up to the group run, or they showed up to the panels that I hosted, or I saw them around town. And it was just like such a cool way to take something from online to offline and have that connection. By the way, if you want to join us in September of 2026, use the code FTLR 2026 for 10% off, and we will see you in Boulder. And check out boulderthon.org to get signed up. But the point is that so many people are looking for that connection. They're looking for some like affinity group or some through line that causes them to be connected to each other. I got into running through November Project, and I did it in Boston, but I would go to San Francisco or New York or Austin, Texas, or Denver. And if you wear the grassroots gear, it was spray painted logo, you're automatically a part of something that's bigger than you. And you're part of this group. And I literally stayed on people's couches and in their guest bedrooms, having never met them before, but we just had this connection from this weird thing that we all did at 6:30 in the morning every Wednesday. And so it's just so cool when you can take these groups that exist online and meet in real life.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's just so cool because people want that real life stuff, right? There's like tons of studies. Like I believe there's like one study that showed that people with better social integration or social connection had longer lifespans and had a much higher chance of living to the age of 85. Like it's not only something that people want, but it's something that biologically helps us to live longer and feel better.
Yeah, we're people that likes being with other species that likes and needs to be with other people.
Yes, 100%. And so like I think it's so cool to be able to bring that together because we work with a lot of people who are kind of in that situation that I mentioned before where they don't know anyone in ultra running. Like we get a lot of people who are just sign up for their first 50K and they don't really have a lot of other friends that run. And so we're like, hey, like we want to let you know you're not alone on this journey, not just for you and your coach, but you and all of the hundreds of other people that we work with here in the Everyday Ultra community. And so like that's the coolest thing I think that can help people because, when you do things with a team, like it really helps you to just, perform better. Like what's super cool is like there's like another study done where they did like a research group of 3 different groups of athletes. They had one group of athletes who they were just doing workouts on their own. They were just doing workouts on their own and they recorded their performance. They had another group that did workouts, but they were competing with other people. And they saw that the people who competed, they actually had better performance than the other group. Now they had a third group that said people who are working together on the same team, that group actually performed the best out of all 3. And so I think that even just shows that if you even want to perform better as an ultra runner, I think community also goes too. So it's not even just longevity. It's not even just happiness. It's performance too. If that's all you care about, you're like, screw community. I just want the workouts. I'm like, bro, you can perform better too.
I love that. So David Roche is my coach. And a few years ago at this point, he put something in my training log after I had done a couple of workouts with other people. And he was like, the differential of your RPE, your rate of perceived exertion, of doing something solo versus other people is like wildly outsized versus normal. And so he's like, if you want to perform, do it with other people. And I absolutely love it. Like yesterday I did a workout, my friend Lauren, and it was 8 by 1 minute on, 1 minute off, and then 8 by 30 seconds on, 1 minute off. And I wasn't planning to do a workout yesterday. I was just like running easy the last couple of weeks, and I ran into her. I decided to do the workout. I was like, I'll do the 1 minute sessions with you, and that's it. And she's like, well, I don't have my watch, so anything you can do would be great. And so we did it, and she was surging a little bit. And towards the end of the workout, I was like, no, it's on. Like, I can't let her get away. And I got up to her in one of the 30 seconds. She's like, where did that come from? Because she was putting like 2 to 5 seconds on me in the minutes, and then like 2 to 5 seconds on me in the 30 seconds. So it was meaningful across the faster interval. And I was like, I don't know. We just like locked into that competitive nature. She's like, yeah, I heard you coming and I picked it up myself. Like, and it's just like such a fun when you have that unspoken, like we're now competing with each other, but also making each other better at the same time. And there are so few places where you can get there. You can find it in work through teams that are like really dialed in with each other and trust each other a lot. It's much easier to find it in running, and real fun when you get in lockstep with someone like that.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. I think it's just so, so cool. And that's why I think like, competition makes people better. And I think even just like having teams like make people like better. Like we have, across all of our coaches at Everyday Ultra, 25 athletes racing Javelina this weekend. And like throughout the whole process, like we connected them. They were rooting each other on in training. They're like, oh, it's peak week. Like, here we go. They're like, you got this. And I even saw like one of the athletes like screen shared like a text communication from one of them. They were like, oh, like I'm nervous. And the other one was like, like, that's the price for big goals. And like, they were like, yeah, that hyped me up. And you think about that and you're like, wow, like that conversation would have never happened if it wasn't for this community thing. And I think that's just the coolest thing is like, you find other rad people doing the same rad stuff as you, like both of you are going to do those rad things even better.
All right, let's get to some shameless plugs. Plug the race. What's the name? Where can we find it? What's the date? And how do people sign up?
Absolutely. So the race is called Desert Peak Ultra. It is in Tucson, Arizona, so 2 hours south of Phoenix. So it is April 11th and 12th. We have a 100K and a 50K. The 100K is on the 11th. The 50K is on the 12th. And if you dare, you can do both, or you can do one. Either way, it's not just a race. It's a festival. We want to make it a community vibes. And you can sign up on ultrasignup.com. Shout out to Ultra Sign Up. They're amazing. Also the root of many bad decisions I've made in my life. But all that being said, it's on ultrasignup.com. So that is the Desert Peak Ultra.
As a coach, is it a good warm up for Boston the next weekend?
I mean, Boston, I would say it will help you with the downhills on Boston for sure. But all that uphill, man, I don't know. Maybe not as course specific, so to say.
And where's that sweet shirt that you're wearing from?
Oh, man, these are from the amazing people at John G, best trail running apparel in the market. I mean, we've been wearing John G for over 3 years at this point, and they're just amazing, and they make some of the best stuff ever. I'm even just wearing this on the podcast, which is great, but I've worn this shirt to run too. You're wearing that shirt. So yeah, John G is absolutely incredible. Best trail running apparel in the market too. And I've worn them in every race that I've done over the past like 2.5 years, and I've never had a complaint on any of their stuff. And I want stuff that lasts long, and I'm still using stuff that I've had for 3 years ago, and it's less like holding up perfectly. With all the miles that we put in as ultra runners, that is a must.
I am still wearing John G stuff that I bought in 2013.
Look at that. That's great. Shout out John G.
I'm specifically digging the half tights as of late. I did Grand Traverse, so it took about 9 hours and wore the half tights for that. No chafe. It was fantastic. They're sponsoring this podcast for the rest of the year, and I love the team over there. I've known them, like I said, since 2013 when I was like just getting into running. They were super big in the November Project scene. Mike and Dave, their co-founders, were just like always showing up and racing. And John G was like the community hub for runners in Boston. They had a space, Newbury Street, and we would just like have parties there. We did a beer mile a couple of times. It was just like a really fun, to your point, community vibe and just like a centralized place. And it's wild that like the clothes that I bought from them back then, A, still fit, and B, are still holding up.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I work really close with Mike over there, and he's awesome. He actually just completed his first 100K.
Kodiak, right?
Kodiak. So shout out Mike.
Did you hear how it went?
I have not talked with him since the race. I just sent him a congratulations text. I'm sure he's resting, recovering, getting back to the business stuff. I think that he wanted the finish and he got the finish, and I'm super, super proud of him.
We went out to Aspen in August for a race. He did a marathon, which was like a heavy marathon. It was like 27 and change. And I did heavy half, which was like 15 and change. And he got spanked by the altitude. He was like, I need a little more work at high altitude, but he had a really good time. And it's just fun to watch people who are so motivated, push themselves and try things that are coming from Boston and going to 9,000 feet or 8,000 feet at the base of the run. It's hard. And if you live at sea level, you don't really have a choice sometimes. You just gotta suffer.
Gotta go through it.
Sweet. Joe, is there anything else you wanted to cover today? Any more words of wisdom for the audience?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing, and it's so interesting too, because, shout out to one of the coaches on our team, Killian Korth. He just broke the record for the Triple Crown of 200s. And we've been talking about this a lot. We actually went on a run this morning. We were talking about this. It's like, don't set limits in your life. And I think here's the biggest thing, right? People hear that and like, oh, of course, like, don't set limits in your life. But like, when in your life have you actually live that principle? And I don't say that from like a mean standpoint of like being like, when have you done that? It's more from like, ask yourself that question. Have I actually lived something where I didn't set limits on myself? And if not, it doesn't make you a bad person. If you haven't, like, set a goal next year where you're not going to set the limit. And we talked about this on the first podcast that we did together. I set the dream of going for a golden ticket. Now I haven't gotten the golden ticket yet, but I can tell you this. Going for that golden ticket has gotten me way farther than where I would have ever gone if I didn't go for it. Having these big dreams for the business that I haven't hit yet has gotten me way farther than what I've gone if I just like settle and just be like, hey, I just want to be a one-man coaching show. So never set limits on yourself. And even if you don't get to that point that is really, really high up, you're going to be way closer than where you were if you didn't set the goal high enough from that standpoint, right? It's that saying, right? You shoot for the moon, but you land in the stars. And if you shoot for the stars, you stay on Earth. And so like, I think that's the coolest thing ever. And so, yeah, and Killian's been a great proponent of it. He would be an awesome guest to have on your podcast too. I mean, dude's crazy. Like, so he like won this, and then he went from like $4,000 to almost 40,000 followers overnight. It was like the craziest thing. But I think he's like a really good example. Like he did not set limits for himself, and he went through his whole journey of, going through a few DNFs and, races where he had to be pulled medically, but he overcame it. And now he, won the Triple Crown of 200 and set the record. And so, yeah. So from my friend Killian, don't be afraid to set limits. And I don't just say like, listen to that and be like, oh yeah, of course. Like actually set a goal next year where you're not going to set those limits and go for it. And you're going to be fulfilled.
I am tempted to say that a 50 miler is my unlimited goal for next year. I just said it.
Dude, well, how about this? How about this? If you want to not set limits and do 100K, I'll hook you up for free at Desert Peak. So there you go.
All right, let me think on that one. Joe, appreciate the chat and may have to edit that part out. Just kidding. It'll stay in and haunt me for the next few weeks or months until I commit.
I'm going to hold you accountable and be like, hey, you got that 50 miles signed up yet?
Yeah. When I finished Grand Traverse, Zoe Rome said to me, she was standing right at the finish line. She's like, you could have run another 10 miles today. I was like, not with the last 4.5 miles I ran, which was straight downhill off Aspen Mountain, dropping 3,500 feet. But, if those last 4 miles were flat, perhaps. So I'm curious about that distance. And I think 2026, here we go.
You can do it, man. You can do it. And thank you for having me on, man. This is a pleasure, treat. Always love everything that For the Long Run does. And thank you for everything you do and have me on, man.
Likewise.